A full millennium after the collapse of the Harappan civilization, urban life abruptly re-emerged across the Indian subcontinent. The catalyst for this resurgence was a specific technological breakthrough, the mass production of iron tools, and specifically the iron plowshare. Unlike earlier bronze or copper, iron allowed early settlers to successfully clear the incredibly dense, deep-rooted forests covering the highly fertile Ganga basin. This capability pulled the center of political gravity away from the traditional Vedic homeland in the northwest, driving populations southward and eastward into the expansive river plains. Prior to this migration, the dominant social unit was the Jana, nomadic tribes where loyalty was strictly tied to bloodlines and lineage, rather than any specific plot of land. But as these tribes settled into permanent agriculture, they formed the Janapada. In Sanskrit, this literally translates to where the tribe sets its foot, a fixed, territorially defined settlement. Tying human survival to permanent, heavily cultivated farmland changed the social contract. Allegiance moved away from roaming tribal chiefs and toward defendable geographic borders. Since we lack satellite imagery from 2,600 years ago, how do we know exactly where those new borders were drawn? The most precise geopolitical records we have survive in ancient religious manuscripts, specifically the Buddhist Anguttara Nikaya and the Jaina Bhagavati Sutra. Monks and ascetics constantly traveled to preach. This meant they relied heavily on secure trade routes and accurately recorded the boundaries of the political territories they crossed. Because these lists were compiled independently by competing religious orders, there are slight variations in the exact names they prioritize. Yet both textual traditions explicitly agree on the macro structure of the subcontinent. They outline a system dominated by 16 distinct superpower states. In the academic record, these 16 massive territorial entities are classified as the mahajanapadas, or Great Territorial States. By cross-referencing these physical manuscripts, historians have verified a highly accurate geopolitical layout of ancient India right as it entered its second urban age. This map of the 16 mahajanapadas in the 6th century BCE reveals a subcontinent defined by shifting borders and escalating competition. In the northwestern perimeter, we find Gandhara, with its renowned capital at Taxila, and Cambodia. Their position made them the critical and highly vulnerable gateway for both overland trade wealth and foreign invasions. Moving down into the central and western cluster, we find Matsya, Shurasena, Chedi, and Avanti, which operated from its capital at Ujjain. Because of its sheer size and strategic placement, Avanti would pose a severe long-term military threat to the Eastern powers. At the absolute southern limit of this system sits Asaka, uniquely isolated far below the Vindhyan Mountains on the banks of the Godavari River. These perimeter states formed a massive geographic ring, effectively boxing in the true, highly concentrated center of economic and military power. Power was concentrated in the hyper-fertile eastern Ganga core, holding heavyweights like Vatsa, Kuru, Panchala, Kashi, Kosala, Magadha, and Anga. Anga, at the far eastern edge with its capital Champa, served as the primary maritime port connecting merchants directly to Southeast Asia. This dense cluster was split by a strict structural divide. Most operated as monarchies, centralized states where political authority passed automatically from a ruling Raja to his son. The alternative was the Ghana Sangha, best represented by the Malla and the powerful Vaji Confederacy at Vaishali. These were oligarchic republics. State decisions, and even the selection of the ruling chief, were determined collectively by a council of clan heads voting in an assembly. The Ganga core became a testing ground. It pitted the rapid, centralized decision-making of absolute monarchs against the collective resilience of cooperative republics. Out of these 16 competing states, one ultimate victor emerged. Under the Haryanka dynasty, Magadha consumed its neighbors to become the undisputed hegemon of India. Magadha possessed two enormous geographic advantages. First, they held near exclusive access to the region's richest iron ore deposits, allowing them to equip massive armies and mass-produce superior agricultural tools. Second, their capital, Rajagriha, was a natural fortress. Enclosed by a steep ring of 5 mountains, the city was virtually immune to enemy siege. Recognizing that prolonged military campaigns drained state resources, King Bimbisara pivoted Magadha's early strategy away from raw conquest and toward diplomacy. Bimbisara secured vulnerable borders through strategic matrimonial alliances, marrying princesses from rival powers like Kosala, Vaishali, and Madra. The Kosala alliance was highly lucrative. As a royal dowry, he received Kashi, instantly adding massive tax revenue to Magadha's treasury. Rather than fighting for early supremacy, Bimbisara married into it. He weaponized diplomacy to transition Magadha into a heavily financed, highly defended base of operations. That era of diplomacy ended violently. Bimbisara's son, Ajatashatru, seized the Magadhan throne by assassinating his own father. The geopolitical fallout was immediate. Enraged by the murder of his brother-in-law, the king of Kosala instantly revoked the lucrative dowry of Kashi. Ajatashatru responded with total war, launching a brutal military campaign against his own uncle, King Prasenjit. On this map, we see their close borders. Ajatashatru broke the Kosalan forces, permanently absorbing Kashi. With his western flank secure, he turned his armies north across the Ganga River toward his next target, the mighty Vaji Confederacy. Unified as a cooperative republic, the Vaji clan leaders fiercely resisted external threats. Their structural resilience dragged Magadha into a grinding 16-year war of attrition. Ajatashatru only managed to break the stalemate by deploying innovative, heavy military siege weapons to systematically crush Vaishali's defensive walls. By entirely dismantling the Vaji Confederacy, Ajatashatru proved a heavily militarized monarchy could overcome cooperative republics. The delicate balance of the 16 states was destroyed. The diverse ecosystem of the Mahajanapadas was effectively erased, replaced by the singular, expanding footprint of the Magadhan Empire. Their supremacy relied on a highly specific formula, monopolizing local iron resources, exploiting impregnable topography, and executing a ruthless transition from diplomatic alliances to total warfare. This transition from scattered tribes to territorial states established the permanent geographic structure of Indian Tower.